What would you do if the people who raise you turned their backs on your child's suffering? Mark stood in the dim hospital corridor, the hum of machines and the faint smell of antiseptic pressing against his senses. His 5-year-old son, Ethan, lay in a room nearby, tubes snaking from his small body, fighting leukemia with a courage that broke Mark's heart daily. Every moment felt like a tightrope walk between hope and despair, and Mark clung to the former with everything he had. Ethan was his world, his bright-eyed boy who still laughed at silly dinosaur stories despite the pain. But the weight of that corridor wasn't just Ethan's illness. It was the betrayal that had shattered Mark's trust in his own family. Growing up, Mark had always been the dependable one. The eldest of 3, he was the son who fixed things: leaky faucets, family arguments, his parents' worries. His younger sister, Clara, was different, sensitive and prone to dramatic outbursts. She demanded attention like a flower demanding sunlight. Their parents, Ellen and George, catered to her every whim, excusing her tantrums as just her nature. Mark never resented it much. He loved Clara, even if her fragility often overshadowed his own needs. But now, with Ethan's life on the line, that dynamic had become a wound too deep to ignore. It started 6 months ago, when Ethan's diagnosis turned Mark's life upside down. The hospital became his second home, and every dollar went to treatments, every thought to Ethan's survival. Mark reached out to his parents for support, not just financial, but emotional. He needed them to be there, to hold Ethan's hand, to tell him everything would be okay. But their response was lukewarm at best. "We're praying for him," Ellen said over the phone, her voice distant. "But Clara's been struggling lately. You know how she gets." Clara's struggles, it turned out, were about her recent breakup and her overwhelming job as a freelance artist. She'd moved back home, claiming she couldn't cope alone, and their parents had thrown themselves into soothing her. Mark tried to understand. He called, texted, even drove 2 hours to their house one weekend, Ethan's stuffed T-Rex in hand, hoping they'd visit the hospital. But Ellen shook her head. "Claire's in a bad place, Mark. She can't handle the stress of seeing Ethan like that. It'd break her." Mark's chest tightened. "And what about Ethan?" he asked, voice cracking. "He's 5, Mom. He's fighting for his life." George, ever the peacemaker, stepped in. "We'll help when things settle down. Clara just needs us right now." Mark drove home in silence, the T-Rex on the passenger seat mocking him with its stitched smile. Weeks turned into months, and their absence grew louder. They sent a check, once $500, with a note saying, "For Ethan's bills." It felt like a transaction, not love. Mark's wife, Sarah, was furious, but she held it together for Ethan's sake. Mark, though, was unraveling. He'd always believed family was a rock you could lean on. Now, that rock was crumbling, and he was falling. Then came the twist that turned his hurt into rage. One evening, exhausted from a day at the hospital, Mark checked his phone and saw a post from Clara on social media, smiling selfie at a music festival, her arms around friends, her caption gushing about finding her joy again. His parents had commented, "So proud of you, sweetheart." Mark's vision blurred with tears. They'd flown across the state to take Clara to that festival, spending money and time they claimed they didn't have for Ethan. The realization hit like a punch. They'd chosen Clara's fleeting happiness over their grandson's survival. That night, Mark sat by Ethan's bedside, watching his son's chest rise and fall. A nurse, Linda, noticed his red-rimmed eyes. She was a familiar face, always kind, always checking on them beyond her duties. "You okay, Mark?" she asked softly. He shook his head, the story spilling out in broken pieces. Linda listened, her face tightening with quiet anger. "You don't deserve that," she said. "But you're not alone. Ethan's got you, and you've got people here who care." She gestured to the hospital staff, who'd become a makeshift family, bringing Ethan coloring books and sneaking Mark coffee during long nights. Linda's words were a lifeline, a reminder that family wasn't always blood. The next day, Mark made a decision. He wrote a letter to his parents, his hand shaking but his resolve firm. "I've begged for your support, and you've chosen Clara's comfort over Ethan's pain," he wrote. "I can't keep hoping you'll change. For my son's sake and my own, I'm done." He mailed it, blocked their numbers, and deleted them from his life like a surgeon cutting out a tumor. It hurt God, it hurt, but it was a clean pain, one that gave him clarity. Life didn't get easier, but it got simpler. Mark poured everything into Ethan and Sarah. The hospital staff became their village. Linda organized a small birthday party for Ethan in his room, complete with a dinosaur cake. A social worker connected them to a charity that helped with medical bills. Ethan, despite his weakness, started smiling more, his spirit unbroken. Mark found strength in his son's resilience and in Sarah's unwavering love. They were enough. Months later, a letter arrived from Ellen. Mark almost threw it out, but curiosity won. She wrote of regret, of realizing too late how they'd failed Ethan. Clara had moved out again, and they were ready to help now. Mark read it once, then burned in the backyard. Their remorse was too late, too hollow. He didn't need them anymore. He'd built a new family, not perfect, but real, rooted in love that didn't pick and choose. Ethan's condition stabilized, though the fight wasn't over. One evening, as Mark read him a story about a brave dinosaur, Ethan grabbed his hand. "Dad, you're my hero," he whispered. Mark's throat closed up. He wasn't a hero, just a father who'd learned that sometimes cutting ties was the only way to protect what mattered most. In the quiet of that hospital room, Mark understood something profound. Family isn't defined by obligation, but by who shows up when the world falls apart. He'd lost his parents, but he'd gained something greater, fierce, unshakable love for his son, and a community that carried them through. And that, he knew, was worth everything.